One day today. 1. How to finally start the life you want. Before we start into audiobooks, I want to take a moment to thank you all for being here. Please support us by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing to our channel. Let's dive into our audiobook. Most people spend their entire lives waiting for the right moment, waiting for motivation, waiting for clarity, waiting until they feel ready. They say one day they will change their habits, one day they will follow their dreams, one day they will start the project, one day they will become disciplined, one day they will turn their life around. But one day becomes someday, and someday becomes never. This audiobook is about the shift that changes everything, turning one day into day one. Day one is not the moment where everything is perfect. Day one is the moment where you begin anyway. Day one is messy. Day one is small. Day one is uncomfortable. Day one is uncertain. Day one rarely feels dramatic or inspiring. But day one is powerful because it sets direction. It is a promise to yourself, a shift in identity, a declaration that you're done waiting and ready to move. The truth is simple but confronting. If you do not start, your life cannot change. Nothing transforms without motion. Nothing grows without action. You can dream, plan, visualize, and wish forever. But until you take one step, even a tiny one, the dream remains a thought instead of a reality. This audiobook is about that step, the first step, the scary step, the humble step, the one that feels too small to matter but changes your entire trajectory. Because the difference between the people who build the life they want and the people who don't is not talent, intelligence, luck, or opportunity. The difference is that successful people start. They start before they feel ready. They start when they are scared. They start when they don't know the entire path. They start with flaws, confusion, nerves, and uncertainty. They start and then they keep going. One day to day one is the shift from intention to action, from wishing to doing, from hoping to choosing, from waiting to moving. This audiobook will help you understand why you haven't started, how to break through your blocks, how to build momentum, how to rebuild self-trust, how to stay consistent, and how to finally make your life match your vision. Let's begin. Most people think their problem is laziness. But laziness is almost never the real issue. The real issue is fear. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of judgment, fear of disappointment, fear of change, fear of being seen trying, fear of losing comfort, fear of discovering who you could actually become. Fear wears many masks: procrastination, distraction, perfectionism, self-doubt, overthinking. But fear always has the same job: to keep you where you are, to keep you safe in the familiar, to keep you comfortable in the predictable, even if the predictable is miserable, even if the familiar is unfulfilling. Fear prefers the known pain over the unknown possibility. Your mind would rather protect you from the discomfort of growth than allow you to evolve. This is why change feels hard. This is why starting feels scary. This is why taking action feels risky. Your brain believes comfort equals safety. But comfort is not safety. Comfort is stagnation. Growth requires discomfort. Progress requires disruption. Transformation requires movement. The truth is, you are not stuck. You are afraid. And that fear is understandable. You've been conditioned your whole life to believe that starting is risky. But the real risk, the biggest risk, is never starting at all. Nothing changes until you begin. Nothing shifts until you move. Nothing transforms until action enters the picture. Day one begins with a choice. A choice to take responsibility. A choice to move forward even imperfectly. A choice to begin the life you know you're meant to live. When you say one day, you push your dreams out of reach. When you say day one, you align with your future self. Let's go deeper. The people who succeed in life are not the ones who feel ready. They are the ones who act despite not being ready. They act with doubt, with fear, with uncertainty, with incomplete information. They start with what they have, not what they wish they had. You don't need confidence to begin. You gain confidence by beginning. You don't need clarity to start. Clarity comes from movement. You don't need motivation first. Motivation grows from momentum. Most people believe they need to feel different before they take action. They believe they need confidence, energy, motivation, courage, clarity, and then they will begin. But feelings don't create action. Action creates feelings. You cannot wait to feel ready. You become ready by doing. You grow into readiness by taking steps that stretch your identity. Think about a time in your life when you finally took action after years of waiting. Maybe you exercised consistently for the first time in months. Maybe you cleaned your home after weeks of putting it off. Maybe you started a project you had avoided. And after you began, didn't you notice something? The hardest part wasn't the work itself. The hardest part was starting. Starting is psychological friction. Starting is emotional resistance. Starting is the battle between your current self and your future self. Once you break through that first layer of resistance, the mind relaxes. Momentum begins. The next step becomes easier. This is why day one matters so much. It breaks the barrier. The moment you begin even with a tiny, tiny action, you create identity alignment. You shift from someone who wants to change to someone who is changing. That shift is powerful. It builds self-trust. It builds confidence. It builds internal momentum. You tell your subconscious, I follow through. I do what I say I will do. I am capable. I am becoming the person I want to be. Day one is not about perfection. Day one is about identity. Let's talk about identity, because identity is everything. Humans do not stay consistent with their goals. They stay consistent with their identity. If you believe you are someone who always quits, you will quit. If you believe you are someone who struggles, you will struggle. If you believe you are someone who is inconsistent, your behavior will reflect that. If you believe you are someone who is capable, determined, resilient, you will behave accordingly. Identity comes before behavior. Behavior reinforces identity. Identity shapes your entire life. This is why starting matters, because starting shifts identity. When you begin, you tell yourself you are someone who takes action, someone who begins, someone who changes, someone who grows, someone who moves, someone who evolves. You cannot think your way into a new identity. You act your way into one. Day one is identity transformation. Now let's talk about how to actually start. The biggest mistake people make is trying to start too big. They try to change their entire life in one day. They try to overhaul everything at once: diet, habits, routines, mindset, environment. And then they burn out. They collapse under the weight of impossible expectations. Your brain hates big change. Your brain fights drastic shifts. Your brain resists massive transformation. But your brain loves small wins. It loves simple steps. It loves manageable actions. It loves progress that feels safe. The trick is not to make your goals smaller, it is to make your starting steps smaller. Not read for 1 hour, read for 5 minutes. Not run 3 miles walk for 5 minutes. Not clean your whole house, clean 1 corner. Not launch a business, complete 1 task. Not meditate daily, meditate for 2 minutes. Not overhaul your life, change 1 thing. Small steps create big change because small steps are sustainable. Small steps are repeatable. Small steps are non-threatening. Small steps slip past fear's defenses. Small steps build momentum. Small steps rewiring identity. Small steps add up. Consistency beats intensity. Momentum beats perfection. Starting beats planning. Day 1 is small by design. Let's go deeper into the psychology of momentum. Momentum is a force. Once you start moving, your mind wants to keep moving. Action begets action. Progress creates motivation. Motion builds identity. Most people think they need motivation to start, but you need to start to create motivation. Motivation is not a cause. It is an effect. An effect of seeing yourself take action. An effect of seeing progress. An effect of trusting yourself. An effect of moving in the right direction. You cannot think your way into a new life. You must act your way into it. This is why day 1 feels different from 1 day. 1 day is passive. Day 1 is active. 1 day is a wish. Day 1 is a decision. 1 day is delay. Day 1 is transformation. Let's talk about one of the biggest blocks to starting perfectionism. Perfectionism is not about high standards. Perfectionism is about fear. Fear of being seen trying. Fear of being judged. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of failing publicly. Fear of disappointing yourself. Perfectionism convinces you that you cannot start until things are flawless. And because nothing is ever flawless, you never start. Perfectionism is procrastination wearing a fancy outfit. Perfection says, wait until you know everything. Wait until you're confident. Wait until you're ready. Wait until conditions are perfect. Perfection is a prison disguised as protection. The antidote to perfection is permission. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to learn. Permission to try. Permission to grow. Permission to be a beginner. Permission to take small steps. You do not need permission from others, you need permission from yourself. You must say, I am allowed to start imperfectly. I am allowed to take small steps. I am allowed to be a beginner. I am allowed to evolve over time. Day 1 is generous. Day 1 does not demand mastery. Day 1 asks only for effort. Let's talk about self-trust, because self-trust is the foundation of everything. Self-trust is built through small actions repeated consistently. Self-trust is created when you do what you say you will do. Self-trust is broken when you promise yourself big things and never follow through. Every time you say, tomorrow I'll start, and you don't, your subconscious learns that your words are not reliable. Your brain begins to doubt you. Your identity becomes someone who doesn't follow through. But every time you take a tiny step, even a very imperfect one, you rebuild trust. Self-trust does not come from achieving huge goals. Self-trust comes from showing up for small ones. A 5-minute action builds more self-trust than a 5-hour fantasy. Day 1 is powerful because it rebuilds your relationship with yourself. Now let's talk about discipline, because discipline is often misunderstood. Discipline is not force. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is not rigid control. Discipline is not perfection. Discipline is not motivation. Discipline is commitment to your future self. Discipline is consistency with compassion. Discipline is alignment with your path. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want in the moment. Discipline is not harsh. Discipline is supportive. Discipline is guidance. Discipline is self-respect. When you start small, discipline becomes easy. When you start imperfectly, discipline becomes sustainable. When you start gently, discipline becomes joyful. Day one teaches you that discipline is not about force, it is about direction. Let's talk about time, because not enough time is one of the biggest lies the mind tells. You don't need more time. You need more intention. You need more clarity. You need more boundaries. You need fewer distractions. You need tiny windows of focus. Because the truth is, you have time. 5 minutes is time. 2 minutes is time. 30 seconds is time. One small action is time. You don't need long periods to transform your life. You need repeated moments. Day one is built in the cracks of your day, the small spaces where your future self lives. Let's talk about resistance. Resistance shows up strongest right before transformation. Your brain senses change and tries to protect you by creating excuses. I'm too tired. I'm too busy. I'm too overwhelmed. I'll start tomorrow. I'm not ready. It's not the right time. It won't be good enough. Resistance is a sign you are moving toward growth. It is not a stop sign. It is a doorway. You must recognize resistance as part of the process, not an enemy, a companion, not a barrier, a signal. Resistance means the next version of you is coming. Now let's talk about the identity shift that happens when you stop waiting and start living. One day keeps you in the identity of someone who is stuck. Day one shifts you into the identity of someone who is becoming. You start to see yourself differently. You start to trust yourself more. You start to feel momentum. You start to feel possibility. You start to recognize your own strength. You realize you don't need perfect confidence. You need courage. Courage is the willingness to move with fear. Courage is motion, despite uncertainty. Courage is action with trembling hands. Day one is courage. Let's talk about what happens after day one. Day one creates day two. Day two creates day three. And before you realize it, you are not someone who wants to change. You are someone who is changing. Momentum becomes identity. Identity becomes lifestyle. Lifestyle becomes transformation. You begin to see improvements. You begin to see progress. You begin to feel different. You begin to believe in yourself. And eventually, the action that once felt impossible becomes natural. The habit that once felt intimidating becomes easy. The dream that once felt far becomes close. The life that once felt unreachable becomes yours. The shift begins with starting. Everything unfolds from there. Now, let's talk about the mental shift that truly separates one day from day one. Choosing discomfort now over regret later. Growth is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. Starting is uncomfortable. Being a beginner is uncomfortable. Learning is uncomfortable. But regret is far more painful. Regret lingers. Regret lasts. Regret grows. Discomfort is temporary. Regret is permanent. Day one is the moment you choose future joy over present comfort. Future pride over present resistance. Future possibilities over present fear. You choose the life you want over the life you're used to. Let's talk about environment. You become what surrounds you. Your habits mirror your environment. Your energy mirrors your space. Your actions mirror your influences. If you want to shift from one day to day one, you must shape your environment. Put your running shoes where you can see them. Take your phone out of your bedroom. Leave your journal, on your table. Prepare your workspace. Create friction for bad habits. Create ease for good habits. Environment is stronger than willpower. Design your environment to support your future self. Now let's talk about energy, not physical energy, but emotional energy. Your emotional state determines your behavior more than your motivation does. One of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is to build emotional rituals, small practices that shift your mood, calm your mind, and increase your energy. Deep breaths, 1 minute of stretching, a short playlist, lighting a candle, a shower, drinking water, a short walk, talking kindly to yourself, sitting in silence, thanking your body. These little rituals shift you into a state where starting feels easier. Day 1 begins with emotional alignment. Let's talk about the stories you tell yourself, because stories shape reality. If your story is, I never follow through, I always struggle, I don't have discipline, I always mess up, I can't stay consistent, I'm not meant for success, then that story controls you. But you can rewrite your story. You can shift your narrative. You can create a new identity. Your new story might be, I show up for myself in small ways. I can grow slowly. I am capable of tiny steps. I am allowed to begin again. I am learning consistency. I am becoming stronger. I am someone who starts. Changing your story changes your behavior. Changing your behavior changes your life. Day 1 is the first page of your new story. Let's talk about failure, because failure is often the scariest part of starting. Failure is not opposite of success. It is part of success. Failure teaches. Failure refines. Failure informs. Failure builds resilience. Failure strengthens identity. You will fail. You will mess up. You will fall behind. You will feel unmotivated. You will slip into old habits. But that doesn't mean you're broken. That doesn't mean it's over. That doesn't mean you should quit. Failure is simply feedback. Failure is a teacher. Failure is a guide. The question is not, will I fail? The question is, what will I do after I fail? Day 1 teaches you to stand up again, to return gently, to forgive yourself, to keep going, because consistency is not about never falling, it's about always returning. Let's talk about comparison. Comparison destroys momentum. Comparison kills confidence. Comparison steals joy. You compare your day 1 to someone else's year 10. You compare your beginning to someone else's middle. You compare your effort to someone else's highlight reel. But comparison is an illusion. You only see the surface of people's progress, never the struggle underneath. You see their achievements, not their failures. You see their confidence, not their self-doubt. You see their results, not their day 1. Your journey is yours. Your timeline is yours. Your pace is yours. Day 1 requires you to stay in your lane. Let's talk about consistency, one of the most misunderstood concepts. Consistency is not doing something every day. Consistency is not perfection. Consistency is not rigidity. Consistency is returning. Returning after a bad day. Returning after a mistake. Returning after a setback. Returning after resistance. Returning even when motivation is low. Consistency is the art of beginning again and again. You can always restart. You can always recommit. You can always return to day 1 mindset. Day 1 is not a date, it is a practice. Let's talk about kindness. Because you cannot build a meaningful life through self-punishment. You cannot shame yourself into growth. You cannot bully yourself into discipline. You cannot criticize yourself into transformation. Self-compassion is rocket fuel for change. Be kind to the version of you who has struggled. Be gentle with the version of you who is afraid. Be supportive of the version of you who is trying. Be patient with the version of you who is growing. You are not weak because you hesitated. You are human. You are not flawed because you stopped. You are learning. Day one is an act of self-compassion, not self-criticism. Let's talk about choice, because your life changes the moment you choose. Not when the world changes. Not when circumstances change. Not when motivation changes. Not when fear disappears. Your life changes when you decide. You decide that waiting is no longer serving you. You decide that fear is no longer controlling you. You decide that comfort is not your priority. You decide that your future matters more than your excuses. You decide that the smallest step counts. You decide that day one begins now. The truth is, nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is coming to push you. Nobody is coming to force you. Nobody is coming to change your life for you. But that is not bad news. It is empowering, because it means your life is in your hands. It means you hold the power. It means your future is not luck. It is choice. One day or day one, you choose. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. The version of you who chose day one. The version of you who started. The version of you who took small steps. The version of you who showed up. The version of you who grew. The version of you who stayed in motion. The version of you who believed. The version of you who didn't wait. Imagine how proud you will feel. Imagine how strong you will feel. Imagine how different your life will look. Imagine the opportunities that opened. Imagine the habits that stuck. Imagine the identity you built. Imagine the confidence you carry. Imagine the momentum you have. That version of you is possible and closer than you think. But they depend on the choice you make today. One day or day one. Now imagine yourself 10 years from now. The life that could grow from small beginnings. The goals that felt impossible but became inevitable. The habits that built your strength. The decisions that shaped your identity. The courage that carried you. The dreams you finally pursued. It all begins with a single step. A tiny step. A step you might even underestimate. This is the magic of day one. Your future self is waiting for you to begin. Your future joy is waiting for you to begin. Your future success is waiting for you to begin. Your future peace is waiting for you to begin. Your future identity is waiting for you to begin. Day one is not the point where you accomplish the goal. Day one is the point where you become the person who will accomplish it. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need perfect clarity. You don't need perfect courage. You need the willingness to take one imperfect step. Start with what you have. Start with where you are. Start scared. Start small. Start messy. Start now. Let's talk about your first action, because after this audiobook ends, you must take one step. Not a big step, a small one. Open the document. Send the email. Do the 5-minute workout. Drink the glass of water. Write the first sentence. Read the page. Clean the corner. Save the money. Set the timer. Google the thing. Make the tiny shift. Your future will thank you for the smallest step. Day one is an action, not a mood. And now let's talk about the deeper awakening that happens when you stop waiting and start living. You stop feeling helpless. You stop feeling stuck. You stop feeling powerless. You stop feeling behind. You stop feeling like life is happening to you. You start feeling capable. You start feeling strong. You start feeling aligned. You start feeling intentional. You start feeling fulfilled. Day one gives you your power back. Because power is created through action. Confidence is created through action. Identity is created through action. Transformation is created through action. One day is a fantasy. Day one is a commitment. One day keeps you dreaming. Day one gets you moving. One day keeps you stuck. Day one sets you free. One day is passive. Day one is active. One day belongs to fear. Day one belongs to you. And now we arrive at the moment that matters most. The moment after this audiobook ends. The moment where you decide whether this was inspiration or transformation. The moment where you decide whether this becomes a feeling you forget or a step you take. You are one small action away from day one. You are one imperfect step away from beginning. You are one moment of courage away from a new life. Do not wait for motivation. Do not wait for clarity. Do not wait for readiness. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for tomorrow. Your life is happening now. Your future begins now. Your story shifts now. Your identity evolves now. Your journey starts now. One day or day one. This is the moment you choose. Make it day one. Day one is not something you do once. Day one is something you choose again and again. Every day, every moment, every time resistance pulls at you, you return to day one. Because the truth is, transformation is not one big moment. It is a collection of small moments. Moments that look insignificant at the time. Moments where nobody is watching. Moments where you say yes to growth instead of comfort. Moments where you choose to begin when it would be easier not to. Your whole life changes in those moments. The world teaches you to chase intensity, to chase big wins, to chase massive breakthroughs, to chase dramatic transformations. But the reality is different. The reality is soft. The reality is subtle. The reality is slow. True transformation is quiet. It happens in whispers, not explosions. In tiny shifts, not giant leaps. In small decisions, not massive overhauls. The world will celebrate your big achievements, but it will never see the small decisions that built them. The world will clap when your life blooms, but it will never recognize the seeds you planted daily with no applause. But you will know. You will remember every day one. You will remember every step you took when it felt easier to stay still. You will remember every moment you showed up for yourself. And that is what matters. Let's go deeper into identity, because this is where the real transformation happens. You do not become your future self by dreaming of them. You become them by practicing their habits. You become them by thinking like them. You become them by acting like them. You become them by making decisions they would make. The version of you who has everything you want: peace, confidence, health, financial freedom, self-trust, discipline, joy. That version already exists. They exist in your imagination for a reason. They are your blueprint. Your imagination is not fantasy. Your imagination is memory from the future, a glimpse of who you can become, a quiet message from your potential calling you forward. Day one aligns you with that future self. Every time you take a small step, you echo their identity. Every time you show up, you embody their energy. Every time you break a pattern, you get closer to them. Every time you choose growth, you strengthen their presence. You are not creating a new self. You are returning to the self you were always meant to be. Let's talk about the internal resistance that happens when you start growing. Because when you begin, something unexpected happens. Your old self begins to panic. Your old self is deeply attached to comfort, familiar habits, old coping mechanisms, old routines, and old stories. Your old self doesn't want to die. Your old self doesn't want change. Your old self doesn't want uncertainty. So your old self will fight for survival. It will whisper all the old excuses. It will remind you of your past failures. It will highlight everything that could go wrong. It will compare you to people far ahead. It will try to protect its existence. This is why the moment you try to change, life feels harder. Not because the path is wrong, but because your old identity is losing control. This tension is normal. This discomfort is expected. This resistance is a sign that you are on the right path. You are not failing. You are evolving. Let's talk about habits now. Because habits shape your destiny. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. If you want to change your life, you must change your daily actions. Not drastically, not perfectly, not immediately, gently, gradually, consistently. Habits are small votes for your future self. Every small action is a ballot. Every repeated behavior is a stitch in the fabric of your identity. If your habits point toward your future self, you are becoming them. If your habits point toward your past self, you remain stuck in old patterns. Day one is the moment you start voting for the person you want to become. Let's go even deeper into momentum, the force that can take you from small, consistent steps to massive life transformation. Momentum is created with 3 ingredients: small action, repeated often, with emotional commitment. You do not create momentum by doing a lot once. You create momentum by doing a little repeatedly. Momentum compounds. Just like money compounds, every small action multiplies into larger results. Every tiny habit strengthens your identity. Every small step fuels the next step. Before you know it, the version of you who once felt stuck becomes the version of you who cannot believe how far you've come. You don't notice momentum building in the moment you notice it in hindsight. You wake up one day and realize, I feel different. I act differently. My life looks different. I am different. Momentum makes transformation inevitable. Let's talk about the power of micro decisions. Your life is made of small decisions, not big ones. The decision to scroll or take a breath. The decision to complain or take action. The decision to stay in bed or get up. The decision to numb or reflect. The decision to say, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it now. The decision to stay small or take a tiny risk. Micro decisions compound into macro outcomes. One moment of courage can change your week. One tiny action can shift your mood. One small habit can shift your identity. One day one can shift your entire life. Let's talk about emotional regulation, because starting requires emotional steadiness. You cannot build a new life from a dysregulated nervous system. You cannot create positive change while constantly overwhelmed. You cannot pursue your dreams from a place of fear. Your nervous system must feel safe enough to allow change. This is why grounding practices matter. Breathing deeply, moving slowly, drinking water, grounding your feet, stretching for a minute, speaking kindly to yourself, calming the body, softening the jaw, relaxing the shoulders. These small physiological shifts send a message to your brain: we are safe. We can grow. Growth requires a regulated body. Let's talk about forgiveness, because many people cannot start because they are shaming their past self. You cannot grow while holding yourself hostage to past versions of you. You cannot evolve while carrying guilt. You cannot expand while dragging old mistakes. You cannot begin while punishing yourself. Forgiveness is not about excusing the past. It is about freeing the future. Forgive yourself for the times you didn't start. Forgive yourself for the times you quit. Forgive yourself for the times you didn't know better. Forgive yourself for the times you chose comfort over growth. You are not here to repeat your past. You are here to evolve beyond it. Your past self got you this far. Your future self will take you the rest of the way. Day one requires forgiveness. Let's talk about clarity, because clarity does not appear before you start. It appears because you start. Movement creates clarity. Action creates insight. Doing creates understanding. Trying creates direction. You do not need to know the entire path. You only need to know the next step. The next step is what creates the step after that. Direction emerges as you walk. Waiting for clarity delays your life. Taking action creates it. Day one gives you clarity. Now, let's talk about the hidden gifts of starting. When you begin, you awaken curiosity. You awaken creativity. You awaken courage. You awaken intuition. You awaken self-trust. You become more alive. You become more connected to yourself. You become more grounded in your purpose. You become more aligned with your vision. Starting opens doors you never knew existed. Starting introduces you to parts of yourself you haven't met yet. Starting expands your life. Now let's talk about the people around you, because not everyone will understand your day one. Some people prefer the old version of you, the version who didn't take risks, who stayed predictable, who didn't change. Your growth might make them uncomfortable. Your progress might challenge their identity. Your new boundaries might disrupt old dynamics. Your new habits might unsettle their patterns. This is not your burden to carry. Your life is not meant to fit inside the expectations of people who fear change. Your path is your own. Your timeline is your own. Your transformation is your own. Not everyone will come with you, and that's okay. Some people are meant for a chapter, not the whole story. Some people cannot join the journey because they are not ready for their own day one. Do not shrink yourself for people who choose one day. Do not dim your light to protect others from their shadows. Day one requires courage to stand alone if necessary. Now let's talk about reclaiming your power. Your power is not in your perfection. Your power is not in your past. Your power is not in your mistakes. Your power is not in your circumstances. Your power is in your choices, your daily actions, your belief in your future self, your commitment to small steps, your willingness to begin. Your power is in your day one. Let's explore the deeper spiritual shift that happens when you stop waiting and start acting. When you begin, you align with flow. You align with momentum. You align with purpose. You align with creation. You stop living reactively. You start living intentionally. You stop being shaped by life. You start shaping your life. You stop being controlled by fear. You start being guided by possibility. Day one is not just a mindset, it is a spiritual awakening. Let's talk about patience, because real change takes time. You cannot rush a seed into a tree. You cannot rush healing. You cannot rush habits. You cannot rush identity. You cannot rush transformation. Patience is not passive. Patience is active faith. Faith in your path. Faith in your progress. Faith in your process. Faith in your future. Day one plants the seed. Consistency waters it. Patience grows it. Let's go deeper into self-leadership. Self-leadership means you guide yourself even when nobody is guiding you. You motivate yourself even when nobody is cheering. You comfort yourself even when nobody understands. You push yourself even when nobody is watching. Self-leadership is the foundation of day one. You become your own guide. You become your own mentor. You become your own supporter. You become your own encourager. Self-leadership is power. Now let's explore the concept of micro-bravery. You don't need to be massively brave. You need to be micro-brave. Micro-brave for 5 seconds. Micro brave, long enough to press start. Micro brave, long enough to begin. Micro brave, long enough to act. Micro brave, long enough to say yes. Every big moment in your life will come from a few seconds of micro bravery. Day 1 is micro bravery. Let's talk about the power of possibility. One tiny shift can change everything. One action can open your path. One habit can transform your identity. One decision can redirect your life. You are closer than you think. Closer to discipline. Closer to transformation. Closer to confidence. Closer to peace. Closer to your dream life. Not because things magically change, but because you choose to. Day 1 is the doorway. Let's talk about the version of you listening right now. There is a part of you that knows you are capable of more. A part of you that knows you have been waiting too long. A part of you that is tired of one day. A part of you that is ready, truly ready to begin. Honor that part. Listen to that part. Trust that part. That is the voice of your future self calling you forward. Day 1 is answering that call. Now let's talk about the moment after this audiobook ends, because that is the moment that matters most. What you do in the next 5 minutes determines everything. Not tomorrow, not next week, not the perfect time. Now, because life does not change in years, it changes in moments. Moments where you choose courage. Moments where you choose alignment. Moments where you choose to begin. You don't need to change your whole life. You just need one small action. One tiny step. One micro movement. One quiet shift. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it is something. Start the document. Drink the water. Set the timer. Take the walk. Write the sentence. Clean the space. Stretch your body. Look up the thing. Make the call. Open the notebook. Say the affirmation. Shift the state. Your day 1 begins with one tiny action. One day ends today. Day 1 begins now. You choose. You are ready. You are capable. You are courageous. You are becoming. Make this your day 1. End of the audiobook. Thanks for listening. Empower Audio.